Greetings and welcome to episode 27 of Ending the Sexual Dark Age. I'm JV Authoros, and this week we'll be talking about the filthy, sticky, sweaty, glorious truth about group sex. I've always said sex is a sport, and sometimes it's a team sport. This episode is not intended to be comprehensive, but to kick off an arc of shows on various aspects of non-monogamy and group play. Being in any relationship is work. Being in an open or poly or swinging relationship is more work, so let's not mince words on that. There are lots of rewards and potential complications. In the next few episodes, I hope, will give you a good lay of the land. It won't surprise anyone listening to this show to hear that I am a fan of group sex. Not all the time, but certainly as an option. In a society where the prophets of the Dark Age look down on anyone who fucks more than one person in their whole life, ooh, you dirty slut, group sex is especially stigmatized. The simple fact of the matter is that having a desire to fuck more than one person is as natural as the desire to fuck in the first place. When we have something we like, we want more. It's simple math. If 2 titties are good, 4 titties are better. If 1 cock is good, 2 cocks are better. Not that everyone subscribes to this philosophy in practice, of course, but I think it's reasonable to expect anyone to be able to understand the appeal. It's fun to fantasize about someone wanting to fuck you. It's also fun to fantasize about more than one person wanting to fuck you. In some cases, fuck each other in the process. That makes you twice as hot and twice as sexy, and who doesn't like to imagine that? Sex with more than one other person is probably the most common sexual fantasy in the modern world. The way the actual scene might play out is going to vary a lot from one person to the next, but I'm betting every single one of you has spent some quality time with your hand and at least a pair of imaginary playmates. There's a perfectly natural reason for that. A whole lot of sexual antics are simply impossible and cannot be executed by 2 people. Getting blown by a woman in the process of getting fucked, for example. I mentioned that one in a recent show because it's one of my personal favorites. There is no blowjob in the world quite like it. And I put the experience right up there with getting blown by 2 women. If you're a guy wavering on whether or not you could be comfortable with your girl getting double stuffed, but you think maybe you're okay with it, be aware that no matter how many times she's sucked your dick, or how good she is at it, that blowjob is an experience unto itself. No matter how hard she's trying, you have not experienced her finest work. For the girls, I can confidently say that I have never known a woman who even kinda liked anal that didn't absolutely lose her fucking mind from a little downstairs double penetration. And I've always been fond of women who've got the right stuff to properly handle more than one cock at a time, regardless of how exactly they like it. Group sex can also be a way to explore bisexual curiosity with a safety net. The sex can be great regardless of who's licking and sticking who. I'm going to talk about this more a little later in the show, but curiosity about any aspect of sexuality tends to work best when you explore it a step at a time. Pushing too hard can make you crash and burn for no good reason, and it's easy to turn yourself or a playmate off a group play altogether with one bad experience. Slow and steady wins the race. That said, group play doesn't have to mean bisexual play for anyone in the group. 2 women can suck the same cock without fucking each other. 2 guys can be in each end of a woman without fucking each other. Hell, 3 guys can lock her up airtight without fucking each other. One of the big fears about group play, and this is just something ridiculous, but it's ingrained in the modern consciousness, is that it somehow can turn you gay to be involved in some kind of sex play with someone of the same gender. Ooh, I'm in a room with another naked guy, and, we're both having sex. Granted, we're both fucking a woman, but we're both naked in the same room and stuff, and it's not a locker room, and I know I'm supposed to not feel right about this. The sexual dark age is the only reason that ridiculousness is in the back of anyone's head, because it just doesn't work that way. Play might reveal desires. It may expose you to something that you're interested in that you didn't realize you were interested in before, but it doesn't create things that weren't there before. We have a primal, visceral attraction to the thought of group sex in lots of different incarnations, but the Dark Age tells us those desires make us bad, shameful, dirty people. Ooh, I love being dirty. But really, it's bullshit. Whatever sexual fantasies you might have, group sex included, are perfectly natural. Each of us has to explore our own sexuality and make the decision as to whether we want to bring any given fantasy into our real-life sex play. Group sex is just another one of those decisions, although it can be a complicated step to take. It's your sexuality. If it involves consulting adults, then nobody has the right to look down on you for it. But you've got to own it. You got to look at the world and say, this is my sexuality, and it is whatever the fuck it is, and I don't care what anybody thinks unless I happen to be fucking them. Monogamy does work for a lot of people. It's been our standard for a very long time. Society pushes it to the point that many of us can't even conceive that there is another acceptable way, or that there is another viable way, I should say, to go through life. So monogamy does work, but a lot of people feel trapped. Just as monogamy seems completely natural to some of us, it feels equally unnatural to others. But it's the only societally acceptable expression of sexuality. So it's what the Dark Age beats into our heads and what we're forced to deal with. Some people just are not capable of long-term monogamy. It's against their nature. Many of them end up as serial adulterers or totally miserable monogamists, neither being a truly viable option. In the sexual Dark Age, it's just not acceptable to spurn monogamy, so people who aren't capable of it keep trying over and over again, leaving a trail of emotionally wounded lovers behind them who are going to have trust issues forever. When you're cheating on someone, you're not just fucking them over, you're fucking over everyone that they ever get involved with in the future. It's bad for everyone. It's bad for business. Sex is a sport, and adultery hurts every team in the league, so please knock it the fuck off. Whatever your relationship issues are, there are better ways to deal with them than adultery. There are ways to deal with them that don't leave permanent scars for other people to deal with. That said, we live in a world exponentially more complex than the one even our parents grew up in. We're in 24/7 stimulus overload, and plenty of people just don't find it reasonable to expect to find one person who can satisfy all of our complicated, overdeveloped sexual, emotional, and practical needs. That's a lot of pressure to put on one person, on yourself, and likewise on your playmate. For some people, adding teammates can be a liberating experience because it means you are no longer 100% responsible for satisfying your playmate's sexual desires. There are as many different ways to do group play as there are to fuck in the first place. Threesomes, wife swapping, swinging, polyamory, orgies, gangbangs, slut wives. Warms me right to the cockles, wherever those are. These terms are thrown around a lot and all refer to different aspects of the more than one person to fuck expressions of sexuality. It's really easy to get confused if you're trying to pick a direction for a first experience. Just like we enjoy doing with everything as humans, we like to name and classify people and sexual behaviors. Be careful to avoid trying to fit into some predefined label. Just follow your own desires and see where they lead you. If exploring group play of one form or another is something you're interested in, the only thing you need to be concerned about is figuring out what seems like it might work for you and not what label might fit. In the name of understanding common terminology, threesomes are pretty obvious. 3 people fucking in any combination of genders. That might or might not include bisexual play, and you're more likely to get your playmate into one if you're not insistent on that point. A lot of guys make the mistake of pressing the issue, thus denying themselves decades of potential double blowjobs. More on that later. Swinging refers to couples playing with people outside their relationship, and comes in lots of different flavors on its own. Swinging doesn't necessarily mean group sex either. Some people prefer to swap playmates and go off for one-on-one play, or just have an open relationship altogether in which each person is more or less free to fuck whoever they want. As with all sex games, it depends on the players, but generally with swinging, there's a core relationship with a primary playmate, and everyone outside that is considered to be a casual playmate. Polyamory, on the other hand, usually refers to a long-term relationship involving more than 2 people, which is equally tricky but for different reasons. Once you bring a third person into a long-term dynamic, you're dealing a lot more with emotional issues and practical issues than you are with just trust and sex drive. You'll also hear the term the lifestyle thrown around a lot and equally claimed by a number of different groups. People into lifestyle BDSM or swinging or polyamory, to name a few, will all regularly use the term to refer to their own lifestyle choice, to the implied exclusion of others. It's not like there's anything malicious about this, it's just an unfortunate consequence of linguistic shorthand. It's only worth mentioning because it's something that can be really confusing for the curious. Whenever you hear the phrase the lifestyle, context is everything. Over the years, I've also observed something that can best be described as animus between various groups who identify with various flavors of alternative sexuality. Those of you already living alternative lifestyles will probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Although I can comprehend this, I really don't understand. My best guess is that once you go to all the trouble to carve yourself out a little slice of alternative sexuality, once you've made peace with being whatever kind of deviant you happen to be, you tend to get a little defensive about your patch of land. There are bigamists that consider group sex to be offensive, swingers who are disturbingly quick to point fingers and call the kinky perverts. I have trouble seeing justification in living an alternative lifestyle yourself, of any variety, and then expending any amount of energy deriding others facing the same challenges you do in slightly different ways. The best way to remain downtrodden is refusing to take or lend a hand, and that goes double for the sexually alternative in the Dark Age. People feuding amongst themselves can remain marginalized forever to the glee of their oppressors or repressors as the case may be. I support every single one of you in your right to express your sexuality without having some prude come along and fuck with you for it, general good taste notwithstanding. When I defend or support anyone with the cojones to own their sexuality, I'm doing myself a favor as well, and so are you. All of us, the so-called deviants, who reach for something more than hetero missionary position under the blankets in the dark, need to band together to collectively tell all the prudes to go fuck themselves. I really don't think any of them have a clue how many of us there are. And you know why? Because we never gather together to be counted. We never stand up together and say, hey, yeah, here's all of us and we're sick of your bullshit. And there you have it. One of the best ways to shine some light into the darkness is to support people who aren't like you. Some of the principles of BDSM are right at home in any group play scenario. In BDSM, we talk about negotiating scenes. And it's no less important before you strip down for a pile of naked people. As long as everyone's limits are respected, everyone can and probably will have a great time. It's always critical to understand the desires and limits of your playmates. There's just a little bit more to juggle playing team sports. Safe words tend to get overlooked in non-kinky scenarios, but I'm a big believer even for vanilla group play, especially if you're part of a couple getting down and dirty with any number of other people. I'm not suggesting that you need formal BDSM-style safe words, but if you use them at all in your one-on-one play, they're naturally going to carry over, and they should. More safety is always good. Safe words for kinky play are intended to stand out as something that will draw anybody's attention to the distress that they indicate. When you're playing as a couple, I strongly suggest you work out some sort of casual signal that one of you wants to politely wrap things up or at least speak privately because there's some sort of comfort issue. We're social creatures who want to please our playmates, casual or long-term, and group play tends to be the definition of the heat of the moment. In healthy, sex-positive group play, everyone needs to keep themselves from being pressured into anything they're not comfortable with. It's always okay to have limits. In fact, I highly recommend putting some sort of limits on play when you're starting to explore anything. There's always plenty of time for more sex. But sometimes in group situations, it's more comfortable to break away inconspicuously to speak privately with the person that you're leaving with. If you're experimenting as a couple, it's a natural impulse to have things you do only when you're alone together. That's perfectly healthy. But I'd caution against getting carried away with that idea. Since kissing is such an intimate act, some couples step into group play with rules that they're not going to kiss other people. In my experience, this is a terrible, terrible idea. The thought process is that, well, you can fuck without kissing, and it's really emotionally intimate. So it's something that you don't have to do outside your relationship. Like you could have group sex without actually kissing anyone, and you keep the kissing for your primary playmate. The problem is that's just not practical. Sure, you can fuck without kissing. You can go to work wearing nothing but pasties and a set of leather chaps. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Well, depending on where you work. The fact is that kissing is so completely central to the sexual experience for most of us, something that we do so naturally that not doing it requires so much concentration and creates so much distraction that it can ruin the rest of the experience. Then, inevitably, someone gets lost in the moment, breaks the rule, and kisses someone that they're in the process of fucking, which is something we naturally do all the time, and this causes trust issues and big-time, daytime television-grade drama. A no-kissing rule, in my opinion, sets you up for failure. Either failure of the rule itself, or failure of your experiences with group play altogether. You might as well agree not to check out any tits in a room full of naked people. So sure, keep something back for just the two of you, but make it something that isn't central to every sexual experience. Make it anal or cum swallowing or facial cum shots or whatever. Just not something that you've done with everyone that you've ever fucked. In my personal experience, it's all academic anyway, because in the modern world we have these horrible diseases, and you should not be riding bareback with anyone outside a primary relationship. I say let sex without condoms be the thing that you keep for just the two of you. Almost all of us like that the best anyway. Actually, you'll find that the most important rules for non-monogamy are for outside the bedroom, or the hot tub, or the slip and slide covered in baby oil. As I said earlier, trust is a core component of any non-monogamous relationship, and you need to make rules for yourselves that reinforce and support that trust in your unique situation. There are plenty of ways to do that, and they're obviously going to depend on who you and your playmate are as people. but I can give you an idea of some things that I have seen work in the past. If you're looking to add other people to your playtime together, as opposed to just opening up your relationship, I suggest only playing when you're together while you start to explore. Imagining what your playmate is off doing without you can obsess and poison the mind, and it can do it very, very quickly. You might find rapidly that you're looking for something more open and that both of you would be comfortable with that, but there's never any harm in starting slow. One of the touchier issues can be who's in contact with who regarding your outside playmates, especially if you're only playing when you're together. For a hetero relationship, if you're bringing a guy in, the guy should be the one in contact with him. Likewise, she should be the one in contact with any girls that you play with. Unless it ends up being something half-assed long-term where emergency contacts might become an issue, only one of you even needs the outside playmate's phone number. The same goes if you're playing with another couple. Let the girls and the guys talk amongst themselves as much as they like, but limit cross-gender contact outside face-to-face scenarios. You have no need for late-night soul-bearing phone calls. You already have a relationship. And in most cases, anybody that you bring in is intended to be a casual playmate. This might sound like a little too much for some of you, and maybe in your particular case it is. But when you're pushing new boundaries in a relationship into territory that's scorned by society, you want to make getting started as easy as possible. Create a strong safe zone within your primary relationship. Then let that safe zone evolve a little bit in whatever way seems natural as you explore. There's plenty more to talk about on this item, but as I was making some notes, I realized it'd be much easier to just talk about it with Shara, so that's what we're going to do, as soon as I've got her here on the mic. As I mentioned earlier, group play can be a great vehicle to explore bisexual curiosity. Most of this works equally well with gender roles reversed, but for the sake of example, I'm going to use a woman admitting to her boyfriend that she's curious about playing with other women. This point, right here at the starting line, is where most guys fuck it up entirely. Our dicks hear that. I'm curious about playing with another woman, and immediately we want to see you diving face first into your hottest friend. We can't help it. It's how we're built. It's more common for women to make this particular admission since society has an entirely different and more accepting relationship with bi girls than bi guys. But you girls are guilty too on this count. The first time a playmate admits to being bi-curious, the natural hardwired response is to think about which one of their friends you'd like to fuck the most. It's okay. We're sexual beings, even though we're taught we're not supposed to be. Don't be ashamed of that response. Just know that the path to victory is to keep that shit to yourself. Let the curiosity take the driver's seat. When a playmate admits bisexual curiosity, it's usually something they worked up to. They need to know that you're not disgusted like plenty of Dark Age drones would be. Most importantly, they need to know that you support them in whatever they do or don't want to do in exploring that curiosity. Remember, guys, the phrase, "I'm curious," does not translate to, "I want to lick some pussy tonight, get some random willing girl over here." Go ahead and rewind that if you want. Your dick might need to hear it twice. A much better translation would be, "Sometimes I find women really attractive, and if I were in the right situation with the right woman, I'd probably test the waters by making out with her a little." That should sound a whole lot more like a step one than the way your dick heard it. Bi-curiosity is appropriately named. It's being curious. Maybe that curiosity translates into some kind of action at some point, maybe not. It's too easy to get sidetracked by which one of your playmates' friends you'd like to fuck, thus making it all about you. It's not about you, except in regards to you supporting your playmates' exploration of their sexuality. Don't push, don't hurry, don't start asking for threesomes right away, don't try to make it about what you want. I assure you, if you just play it smart and go along for the ride, odds are you're going to enjoy the ride. Play the long game. I want to touch again in a little bit more detail about a big disconnect, and that is that group sex does not have to involve any kind of bisexual play if you don't want it to. Guys, we have to just face the music and own this particular misconception because it is our fault. When we picture threesomes, the girls are pretty much always fucking each other while they're fucking us. You see, girls, we love pussy. We don't want you to fuck other girls with us because we don't love you, or because you're not enough for us, or you're not hot enough, or any of that shit that can run through your mind if we're not actively squashing it. We just love pussy. We love it so much, we want you to love it as much as we do. We want to share our love of pussy with you, and in doing so, get closer to you. You know what we do a really shitty job of? Explaining that a threesome with you and another girl would still be just exactly awesome if neither one of you girls wanted to lick any pussy. Yes, we will happily take our faux titties of glory and a nice double blowjob. If we can get some footage for the old pornographic memory of you playing with some titties, it's a hell of a lot more than most of us are used to getting anyway. So guys, you need to start actively working to dispel the notion that a threesome with 2 girls means that your girl is expected to lick pussy. Actually, you know what, that's a job for everyone. Threesomes don't mean bisexual play. The misconception is pretty pervasive, but if the whole league works together with a public relations campaign, we just might make some headway. If your playmate comes out to you as being bi-curious, reinforce that you understand the meaning of the word curious, and just be open-minded and support it. Make it all about them, because it's their curiosity and it is all about them. Stand by them while they explore at whatever pace feels right, from looking at porn online to actually getting slippery, and just enjoy the ride. So, is group play of any kind right for you or your relationship? Group sex is psychologically complicated, especially if you're part of a couple. If you're single, I don't want to minimize this really, but all you really got to do is show up and not be a homewrecker. That's all you got to do if you're single. Keeping a relationship stable while playing with others is a different kind of challenge. It's like learning to be in a relationship all over again, even if you're doing it with someone you've been with for years. You need to come up with all kinds of new rules for yourselves, and you've got to follow them to the letter. Your chances of success depend largely on the strength of your relationship in the first place and how you approach including others in your sex play. For a couple, group sex is an adventure that you get to go on with someone you love. It can highlight existing weaknesses in any relationship, and you should be prepared to deal with any issues honestly and head on if they come up. As with anything sexual, honesty and communication are absolutely critical, but trust becomes an overriding factor in long-term non-monogamy. If some of your rules aren't working for you anymore, sit down with your playmate and talk about that fact. But always talk about it, don't just break the rules. If your approach is to experience new things with your playmate, with a willingness to trust, communicate, and make it about the 2 of you fucking other people, you might want to dip a toe in. As far as indications if it's right for your relationship, I'm going to flip the coin and talk about a few signs that it probably isn't. If your body image is so low that you refuse to fuck with the lights on, that's an issue you need to deal with first. Group sex in the dark presents potential for all sorts of unhappy surprises and even injuries. You've just got to be comfortable naked in front of other people in order to make it work. This might sound obvious, but I assure you, low body image accounts for more bad group sex experiences than anyone realizes, especially first experiences. If either you or your playmate is obsessively jealous or suspicious, always looking for signs that somebody is cheating, group play will probably destroy your relationship. Point of order, your relationship already has issues, if that is the case, and you need to deal with them because that's a shitty way for people to live. If you want to fuck one of your playmate's friends and think a threesome is somehow better than cheating, you will grenade your relationship and you might as well just get it over with. If you have a great loving relationship overall, but have specific sexual issues resulting from one of you being horrified by some of the other's sexual desires, group play might actually help. If your relationship is in trouble due to issues of trust and communication, it won't help. Weak relationships do not benefit from group play. So now we have Shara joining us to talk about what I believe is one of her favorite topics.
Oh, really?
Really? So, group sex.
Yes, group sex.
God, they're just freebies today. For the benefit of the audience, I believe I'm probably not going to call her on every single one of them because then we'll be...
Well, you're going to hurt their ears.
Yeah,
doing
not
that,
gonna
dinging
hurt their ears, but it'll end up getting a little bit distracting. This episode is about the basics of group sex, and as you know, we are going to be talking about a few more in-depth topics a little bit more as the weeks pass, because there are a few shows lined up that are generally around the group sex and non-monogamy aspects of sexuality.
Well, I definitely think you should not rush these subjects. In-depth reporting is necessary.
You should see the look on her face right now. Giggity.
I know. Quit making me laugh.
In depth.
Okay. Moving forward.
All right. So a lot of the stuff that I talked about today on the show, as you know from reading through my notes, It was kind of general basic information, like a beginner's guide type thing for some of the terminology, some of the general pitfalls.
Yes, where was this book when I needed it?
When you needed it, I don't know.
I had you.
Well, it's not really a book.
I know, I'm kind of joking.
Maybe one day there'll be a book, but not yet today.
Well, something tells me there'll be a book.
I think we need 10 or 20,000 more listeners before I'm going to get a publishing contract out of this.
Okay, did you hear that, everybody? Aaron, Belinda, Mandy.
Yes, every one of you just needs to get 10 or 12 more people to start listening.
There you go.
Now, I got no complaints. I mean, our most popular episode is now over 7,000 downloads, and we got several thousand people listening, so that's good stuff, and a lot of great feedback always coming out of the audience. Now, as far as group sex, one of the things that I told the listeners that we would talk about a little bit once I got you on the air.
Yes, I saw that.
Are the rules that you and I kind of use for our own group play. We're probably a little bit conservative in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we're certainly not a totally open, fuck anybody you want to, anytime you feel like it relationship. We both lead very stressful lives, and it's not like either one of us would have the time for that anyway.
Very true, very true. I don't need any more stress. That's for sure.
But we discussed on a recent episode, I discovered that you had never licked a pussy before you met me.
Correct.
So, I mean, that leaves me with the impression that I'm smoother than I even thought I was. Not to pat myself on the back, but
by the way,
it all seemed pretty smooth and easy when we started getting into group play the first time.
Maybe it's because I'm smooth and easy.
Well, we know you're easy at least.
Oh.
So what was it from the standpoint of somebody who had never done any group play before? What was good and what was bad about our first couple of experiences?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, you were very supportive and you made sure that I was okay all the time. I mean, including the beer throwing all over your
my goddamn futon.
Your futon. Didn't care it got all over me, but I think you enjoyed that.
You wash up easier than the futon.
Yes, but you didn't make her lick that off of me. Now see, too dominant and submissive just is not a good thing.
Worked out pretty well for us.
I know, but not for me. I mean, not that I'm complaining about having to lick the pussy, but Then you kind of let her take control. But when you had enough of something, you had enough. That was it. And
Well, we all know that's kind of in my nature. Oh, no, there will be no more of that.
But you also made sure that I was okay. You continuously checked my level. It might not have been, babe, are you okay? Honey, are you okay? It might have been something as simple as just looking in my eyes and reading my eyes.
Seeing them rolling back in your head while you're having uncontrollable, unstoppable orgasms, that's generally a pretty good indication that everything's going all right.
Sorry, when you said that, it made me think of something that's totally unrelated, but...
Totally unrelated?
To group sex, but something happened to me today in a vehicle that I was driving somebody else's vehicle, and it needs some car repair work, and kind of I wasn't having like an orgasm because of the vibration. Well,
wait, the bad wheel balance was getting you off?
It was.
Holy fuck, woman. What are you, a vending machine?
I don't know, but I can't even believe I'm telling you this now while we're sitting here talking about this on the podcast.
So at this point, basically anything resembling a vibration in your general vicinity will get you off.
I don't know. We could try a few things and see what happens, but I'll say that...
I do better work than I thought.
I contacted the person and said, could I borrow your car again? Would you mind? By the way, we could trade cars for a while.
One of the things that I always try to underline is the need to consistently and constantly communicate during play.
Yes.
And that goes back to one of the things that you were just saying. And psychologically, especially when you're doing it your first few times, there can be a lot of stressors involved in group play. Some of them you're not going to expect beforehand. You're walking into a new experience, and if as a couple, two people are trying it, and neither of them's ever done it before, you're twice as likely to have some kind of a weird experience, or be affected unexpectedly by something, I should say.
Well, I don't mean to stop you there, except for the fact that I think one of the things that really made it work well for us, so for any newbies out there considering it, is you took control of meeting with the other dominant. So you had this whole plan of, you talked about how it would work out. And even though it didn't...
and that was specifically, that was the first time we played with a couple.
Correct.
Not the first time we had a threesome.
Correct.
Okay.
You just keep wanting to put that futon back in there, don't you? Yeah.
Brought that thing out in the living room and everything.
Yeah. So, anyway, yes, you made sure to meet with the dominant. And so you, number one, controlled the situation. And even though you met with the other dominant, you made sure I was going to be okay. And I'm sure he made sure his submissive was going to be okay. And I think that's important. So for anybody that's going out there, in my opinion, the first time, I think that discussion beforehand, how it's going to go and what's going to happen, making sure that your submissive or significant other is protected, is all very important.
Well, and there is less in vanilla group sex. There is less opportunity for scripting, or I shouldn't say less opportunity, but kinky people are just kind of used to negotiating scenes and setting up how something's going to play out beforehand, you know.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, even if it's more vanilla.
I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it. I'm just saying it's less likely to happen. So,
but maybe they should, because it might be a better experience.
Oh, it might be. And there's a greater sense of order, I think, when there's BDSM involved, which is, it's not good or bad. It's just different. You know, I think there's a greater sense of order and a higher likelihood that the people involved are used to working to some kind of a script. You know, they're used to detailed, strange limits, as may come into play with some people.
Use that whip. Don't use that whip.
But one of the things that can catch people off guard is not keeping the communication going during play, which as you were talking about a couple of minutes ago, you enjoy the way that I do that. And there's actually a method to the madness, especially when you're new. You're in a new experience. You're personally trying to find your way through a new experience. At the same time, your playmate is also new, and they're trying to find their way through it. You're both worried about how the other one's thinking. Sometimes talking dirty can just solve all those problems for you. Like, for example, if I were to whisper into your ear, "Hey, baby, you like having your mouth stuffed full of my cock while that other guy's pounding your pussy?" See, now that not only gets this result. Oh, shit, hands going down her pants. Check that out.
Oh, yeah, it works. Thank you.
Comments like that, they not only reinforce to your partner that you are enjoying what's going on, they reinforce that it's okay for them to be enjoying it. Because that's one of those fucked up things that the human mind will do. It'll say, what if I enjoy this too much?
Well, it goes back to what you talked about in the early part of the program about ending the sexual dark age, and that it's like taboo, basically, to, have more than one person? I do believe that there is a soulmate out there for everybody. I believe that. But I also believe that you and that soulmate can have a lot of fun with other people.
Well, and I would go so far as to say, even if you believe in soulmates, I would say that somebody who is emotionally a perfect match for you is not necessarily going to meet your every need in life.
Correct. I agree.
And that's something that I think we will see as society continues on. We are not short of some kind of a technological apocalypse where all the machines stop working. Life is not going to start getting simpler anytime in the foreseeable future.
That's for darn sure.
So it's going to keep getting more complicated. We're going to continue to have more inputs and more different kinds of stimulation, access to
Wait,
more.
Could you back up? Say that again. Stimulation. Okay, sorry.
Oh yeah, I said stimulation. She starts thinking about the trunk of dildos she's got at home. But that's not going to change anytime soon. And we've been seeing some stuff in the news over the last few years about the decline of marriage. We'll talk about marriage on a different show. I don't want to get too deep into that. But there is a general decline in people's desire to get married or expectation that they ever will get married. And I think that's a reflection of our changing society. And I don't want to get into good, bad, or indifferent, or what it means too much here.
Well, I don't want to do that to you either, but I don't think that I think it's great if you find a soulmate and you choose to get married. And I think that it's great if you find a soulmate and you choose not to get married, just to be together, live together, whatever the case may be. I think that the most important thing is having a good connection with that person. And that goes back to the communication that you were talking about and the conversation and communication that you have going with that person. I think that is the most important thing, especially going into group sex. I think that you have to have that. Like you said, the communication is key.
Yeah, and the talking dirty thing really it lets both of you know that you're both having a good time. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take a whole lot of it, but especially when you're starting out, when you're trying to develop that synergy in this new sexual situation that with your playmate now includes one or more other people. I think it's especially helpful to just go ahead and let it fly. Talk dirty. Ask your playmate if they like what's being done to them. And you'll get an answer. And like I said, it will help keep everybody on the same page. And if somebody is starting to get uncomfortable with something, you do need to feel free to, depending on the situation. It's not like you want to ring the bell and then sneak off to the bathroom or something, but you can be smooth about it. Just ask what James Bond would do, and you'll figure it out. You're going to do intermissions too. I did not point that out. Don't be afraid when you are doing some group sex play to call an intermission. Hey, people are fucking, they get sweaty, they get tired. You don't just, especially if it's one guy with a couple of girls, you don't want to blow a couple of nuts and then have the night end.
Well, it's also a perfect way of, if you're having a difficult moment, to kind of sneak away for a minute. Like, for instance, if it's, say, a guy and two women, okay? And let's say you and me and another woman, and it's getting a little really hot and heavy, and so everybody needs a break. I could say, Master, could you please help me in the other room? I want to get some pop and things like that together. And it gives us an opportunity or drinks or wine or whatever, but it gives us a chance.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. There's, if you're going to have an intermission, somebody's going to have to go to the bathroom. There's going to be an opportunity to smoothly and without making any big deal about it. Just kind of get yourselves off to the side to have a private conversation. You can also accomplish a lot with whispers, no matter what you're talking about. If somebody's whispering and you got a big shit-eating grin on your face, you could be talking about, the fall of communism in the Soviet Union, and somebody's going to figure you're just talking dirty. So that's another fairly slick trick you can use. And when we're involved in group play, there is kind of a higher stakes of disappointment because any individual person has got at least two people that they're fucking, mm-hmm. So the stakes of disappointment are a little bit higher. I always encourage people to just try and be smooth and positive. Sometimes sex goes weird and sometimes things go horribly wrong with no matter how many people you're fucking. Sometimes things go really horribly wrong or the mood gets destroyed. And don't be afraid to just be honest about it. Just say if you're just not feeling it, other people, what?
I've never had that problem. I'm trying to relate here.
You're trying to imagine.
Yeah, I'm trying to go, okay. Sorry. I've always been very fortunate.
But, if you're just not feeling it or somebody's not in the right headspace.
May that never happen to me.
People will tend to be understanding.
Yeah.
Other people, if you're experimenting with other people who are also kind of new, there are pluses and minuses to that, certainly. But if you're experimenting with other people who are kind of new, they're in the same headspace you are and they're going to understand. And if you're experimenting with people who've got some experience, whether it's a single person who's got, experience doing threesomes and it's just the three of you, or it's another couple, everybody was new at some point. And everybody remembers what it was like to be nervous and trying to find your way. And I think you can expect to find quite a bit of tolerance on that.
Just like you were very, very considerate when you knew this girl was, just first starting out. And so she looked at you and said, "Do you mind?" And you just kept eating your combos.
Well, no, that wasn't group sex though. I mean, she was just fucking my buddy in a room I happened to be standing in the doorway of.
But she was a newbie, and it was at an event that there was sex going on everywhere.
Oh yeah, we took her from I can't believe I'm wearing short shorts to spread eagle on the couch at 3:00 in the morning watching cartoons with us, buck naked. Yeah, that was a fairly impressive transformation that night.
But she did end up getting married, and as a shower present, didn't they buy her some combos?
Oh yeah, that's kind of a big story unto itself. That one offhand comment by me that evening turned into something legendary. It's funny how stuff like that just happens sometimes.
Well, with you, I'm not surprised.
All right, so do you have anything to say to the audience regarding trying to figure out whether or not group play is something that might be right or wrong for them?
Well, similar to a lot of other conversations that you've had with on the podcast, I think a lot of it is open communication. I think that there's a lot of different movies and things. If let's say there's a couple and he really wants to try it, but he's not sure if she is, there's all kinds of, what's that one that we watch, sex talk thing with the girl on?
More information.
She's blonde and she does this whole skit about, I think it's HBO, and she's blonde.
Oh, are you talking about Katie Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Katie Morgan is a porn star that did a few episodes that were really pretty cool episodes that were on HBO. She is just a happy-go-lucky, thrilled to be fucking as much as possible kind of a girl, and she wears it really well.
Right. But I mean, there's, you could put something like that on, just, okay, it happens to be on TV and you're watching it with your significant other, and, well, how do you feel about that? And start the conversation is one way. Another is just to be brutally honest and say, hey, I was thinking we might have some fun doing some group play. What do you think? There's those different approaches. I think a lot of it for me is I think about our podcast listeners out there that are new to experiencing some of these things or wanting to experience them. And so I immediately go to them because until I really didn't have those kind of experiences like I have with you, like we have. So, and it's all positive because as you know, I've gone through some pretty horrific relationships. And so because of you, my mindset is a lot different.
My ex has got yours beat on the crazy meter, though.
Yes. No argument there. But you made it easy for me to want to try the experience and never regret it. I've never regretted one moment that we've shared with somebody else other than you and I. So I think, and you're always checking the meter for me. So I think that that's important. So for new people out there, that's what I think about is I was there once and how it was presented to me. So for the men out there that are new at it and not sure how to deal with it, they need to, take a few lessons from you. Whereas the female part of it, if they're going, I wouldn't mind trying it, that's where I can be helpful and say, step into it lightly like you always recommend. Start it and see what happens. But a lot of talk before you actually walk through those doors and spend the time with another person or playmate, couple, whatever it might be, knowing where each other's head is at.
Well, and that also feeds into understanding what your playmate wants to get out of the experience. And it can be real simple nuts and bolts stuff,
Yeah, just sex.
If a woman's going to get double teamed by two guys, does she want the double penetration? Does she want one in the pussy and one in the ass? Is that something she's interested in? Or is that something she's like, oh, well, I'll suck as many dicks as you guys got, but nobody's sticking anything in my ass. And if it's somebody that you're in a relationship, oh, you like that one, do you?
Oh, yes, I do. Okay.
If it's somebody you're in a relationship with, you're probably already going to know the answer to that question. But it still bears discussion because maybe in that situation, maybe a woman who doesn't necessarily like anal, maybe in that situation where she's got plenty of dicks flying around, maybe she wants to try it. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But discussing the experience beforehand, at least to the extent of having a good understanding of what your playmate wants to get out of it, what you want to get out of it, and specifically, and maybe more importantly, things that you know going in would make you uncomfortable. For example, and this I recommend as a limit for pretty much everybody, unprotected sex. I mean, there are situations, most of them are poly situations, where you will have more than two people that are in a committed relationship. And that changes matters dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as anything you would consider to be casual sex, or most of the group sex that I've engaged in my life, you got to wrap that fucking thing.
Well, even in the poly, there's been incidents where you're thinking everybody's underneath the same roof in some situations, and they're all committed to each other per se, but then, oops, something ends up finding out that one of us slid off the beaten path a little bit.
It's just math. That's one of the increased complexities of any type of group situation. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but when you're in a relationship, there's a percentage chance that one of you is going to cheat. Well, if you're in a relationship with three people, the chance that somebody is going to cheat goes way up. And it's just a numbers game. It's human nature in relation to numbers and percentages. That's one of the ways in which group situations can very measurably and very tangibly become a little bit more complicated. Not to say that they're not worth it at all, but they're certainly not worth it for everyone.
And one of the things that you brought up in there was the fact that the cross-gender, and not to let that happen. Okay, so you get together, you play, and you want to get together again, but the male deals with the male and the female can deal with the female, or just one. Yeah,
and I have always found that just, it presents a little bit of a safety net. It really does make life simpler in a lot of ways for everybody, because nobody is worrying that, that the guy is, on the phone in the middle of the night with the other girl, blah, 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 blah. If you want to change your relationship status, if you're not getting those midnight phone calls and shit, that's all relationship town,
Right.
Once you're already in a woman's pants, unless you're in a relationship, you're not having those midnight phone calls anymore. And pretty much, and the same goes both ways. Giggity.
It's just not fair to me sometimes, I'm telling you.
But there's just really no reason for it, because you're not, depending on how you interact with swinging or poly or whatever your personal flavor happens to be, perhaps you are, as a couple, dating another couple. Because that dynamic certainly happens, and it's certainly possible, but it's not necessarily, it shouldn't be assumed that that's what's going on.
Right.
And I would say once people get their feet wet and a few other things wet and get a little bit of experience, they'll obviously know what they're comfortable with, and things will become much more natural and much smoother. And, see, you're distracting me by playing with your pussy again.
And just checking.
Delay of game.
Just checking. You don't have to watch me.
Checking to make sure there's still a pussy down there? I'm pretty sure there is.
Make sure I'm still wet.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure about that, too.
Well, I always like to check to be sure. So,
is there anything, we know you're way more than bi-curious, my little champion pussy licker, so I don't know if you got a whole lot to say about bi-curiosity, because, you had me fucking fooled. You got me on that. I had no idea until like 3 weeks ago that the first pussy you ever licked was in front of me.
Well,
I'm probably going to harass you about that for a very long time, because I'm annoyed with myself for not having put that together like 9 years ago.
Well, you didn't ask.
Well, it didn't seem like I had to.
Well,
you knew your way around down there. I know that much.
You guided me. I'm innocent.
No, I don't believe I guided you much. I think she just said, "Come over here and lick my pussy." And
yes, remember she grabbed my hair, and that was it.
So she was giving you a little guidance.
Oh yeah, she was like, okay, basically, bitch, over here, do this, and that's okay. Maybe I'm being a little bit.
And you liked it, didn't you?
Stop that! No, don't ring that bell.
Shara does like being used by a strong woman, and I do like watching on occasion.
Okay, next subject.
She's rocking back and forth like she's trying to stave off a seizure over here. This is awesome.
I just want to say to the listeners out there, sometimes I just do not think it's fair.
What does fair have to do with anything?
I know.
Slave.
Oh, I can just hear the comments on Facebook tomorrow.
I'm sure they'll be entertaining as always. So before we wrap this episode up, is there anything else about kind of basics and intro stuff regarding group sex that you would like to say to the audience?
Well, I think I cannot say it enough. The reason that you probably really didn't know was about me was because you made it so comfortable and easy for me. So there's a lot of people out there that do not have that experience in comfortability. Some men, and I don't mean this to pick on anybody, but they're just not as comfortable with it as you would be. And there's other ones that are.
Right. Well, there are just benefits to experience in the comfort zone level.
Right.
If you're getting kind of a guided tour into group play by someone who's done it enough to feel comfortable in the environment, I think it's probably certainly going to be easier. But the lack of an experienced person, I also don't think should stop anyone because, of course, at one time I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, I find
that hard to believe.
I just like I was falling off a curb. I just tripped into it.
Sometimes I feel like, when you were born, you came out just like ready to go. I just don't believe that. I just think you're like ready to go. This guy came out walking people.
I was a total nerd in high school.
Okay, well.
I was. I got zero attention from girls till my senior year in high school. And by then, I was chasing around girls in their 20s. I didn't have any use for high school girls by the time they were paying attention to me.
Sorry, you're too late. I'm all grown up now and no longer a nerd, as you say.
Oh, shit, I was getting into bars.
Imagine my shock. Just like my friend, she was getting into the bars at the age, I'm not kidding, she was only like 14 years old and able to get in.
Oh, for women, it's a whole different story. A guy getting into bars underage because we don't have pussies or tits is much more difficult than women getting into bars underage.
Well, I'm sorry about
Bouncers
that.
don't want to see what we got to flash. Had my 21st birthday party in a titty bar where I was a regular. That was good times.
I'm not surprised. Just not surprised.
DJ, guess who's finally 21?
The guy who's here every night for the past 3 years.
Well, that was fun. I've told you this story before. I don't think I've told the audience. The titty bar I used to hang out in as a regular, knew a lot of the dancers, knew the owners, knew one of the bartenders. It was a small club. So generally there were only two bouncers on, one of them working the door, the other one in the DJ booth. And the bouncers were also responsible for stocking the bar for the bartenders. So me or we were all regulars, me and all my buddies that hung out there. So whenever the doorman had to go restock the cooler, one of us would take over on the door. And it was like the running joke. Every single time I was on the door, somebody was trying to get in with a fake ID or underage or something. It was a running joke in the club that every time the minor was working the door, minors tried to get in, and I was absolutely merciless. I wasn't going to mess up my good thing. I didn't need some cop doing a sting and coming in asking for my ID. I had zero tolerance.
I'm sorry, I trust me, but I don't trust the rest of you people that are trying to sneak in here under false ID, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about bars in rough neighborhoods that qualified as a rough neighborhood even back then. But the thing about bars in rough neighborhoods, if you're cool and you hold your liquor and you treat people right and you tip the waitresses, nobody gives a fuck how old you are. They really don't.
So
as long as you look like maybe you're old enough to be in there.
So how did you learn how much to tip?
Well, I've always been a big tipper. You know that.
I'll bet you have.
Sometimes I give them more than the tip.
Yeah,
All right, well, I think we probably ought to wrap it up here.
Want to say happy birthday to Erin, even though it's
the first show we've done since her birthday.
Correct.
So we're just gonna shove that through and get away with it.
Because she is a sweetheart, and I think that I hope she had a great birthday. It sounded like she did. But definitely deserved to have a great birthday. So, and for anybody that we may miss, they might not be on my Facebook page, so I don't necessarily see it. So
yeah, Shara is Shara is kind of in charge of the birthday wishes, and also not everybody that's friends with me is friends with her. So if you want your birthday called on the show, become friends with her.
I'll make sure it happens.
As in many aspects of life, I rely heavily on my female for things like remembering significant dates, birthdays, the sending of thank you cards, the creation of Christmas lists.
You never have to worry about me forgetting about a group play or anything like that.
Well, yeah, we know that.
So definitely, I'm all over that. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, that gets a gold star on the calendar. I know, baby.
Well, again, I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in, and sorry that we had the delay this weekend. So
yeah, it's been kind of a surreal couple of weeks.
You have been on overload.
I haven't been able to go 20 minutes without something going horribly fucking wrong with something. Finally yesterday, I sit down to record the episode. I'm at my computer 5 minutes. I get the blue screen of death. I've never even seen the blue screen of death on Vista before. So I'm like, what the fuck? I've had this computer for like 4 years and I've never even seen that screen before. So I spent 4 hours last night getting the computer to act right again.
You did, and then you came back here today after trying to squeeze in a full day of work because we have a business together, and so you're like constantly being called out to go do things. So I commend you for getting this all done as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Well, thank you, baby.
You're welcome. And thanks again, everyone.
And that pretty much brings this episode to a close, and we thank you all for joining us once again. Group sex and non-monogamy are big, complicated topics, and this is just the opening salvo of our coverage. Over the coming weeks, we'll be going much more in-depth on some topics mentioned briefly here today, including at least one great interview with a couple of swinging podcasters, more talk about threesomes, how to find people to invite into your pile of flesh, how to make sure everyone gets what they came for, and much more. As always, please feel free to join in the conversation by posting anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvaltheros@gmail.com, or calling the listener line at 517-376-3116. You can always find Shara and I on Facebook, Twitter, and FetLife through links on the website, and good ratings and reviews on iTunes are always appreciated. The next episode will be Listener Mail Volume 9, and until then, this be me, JV Altheros, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.